So the financial numbers for the last year for both Xbox and PlayStation have been revealed, but they're not quite as cut and dry as you might expect. Let's dive in and talk about how Xbox did, how Sony did, and sort of compare them both right now. Okay, so let's start with Xbox because, and I'm going to go sort of slow through this because Xbox doesn't do a lot of math. So right away, I need to give credit to Daniel Ahmad over on Twitter because I ended up just pulling a lot of numbers from him, and a lot of the graphs you'll see are actually from him, and I'll credit him appropriately for that. But he's an analyst, so he's going to be able to cut these numbers better than I can. But basically, the long and the short of it is that the gaming revenue for Xbox is up 50% year over year. So Xbox did 15 billion in revenue in 2021 financial year versus 10.3 billion in the 2020 financial year. For context, according to Daniel, this is their best Q1 in 6 years. So that's really, really impressive. Just knowing that they're finally, hitting the stride that they had hoped that they would hit. And just like Sony, they're also having trouble keeping up with demand for their new consoles. So they're manufacturing them basically as fast as they can, and they are flying off the shelf just as, everybody is having trouble getting their consoles off the shelf, basically. So game and services, so Game Pass, third-party titles, first-party titles, those are up 34% over year. And they specifically talk about Game Pass, obviously, like that has seen a huge boon. So third-party titles are also selling really, really well, as well as their first-party titles, which is only going to improve as the years go by. And then Xbox hardware sales are up 232% year over year, and that's driven by the Xbox Series X and S demand, of course. And then for monthly active users, Xbox and Microsoft are saying that they have 140 million monthly active users. And then if you want to talk about how much money Microsoft made total, they're reporting 41 billion in revenue for the year. So those are Xbox numbers. Some tremendous, great growth here. It looks like being 34% up in content and services. That's no joke. Game Pass was already being noted early last year as something that we should all be paying attention to. Gaming revenue is up 50%, and hardware is up a staggering 232%. So let's start looking at how that compares to the Sony numbers that were also reported. Sony had their Japan thing this evening that Daniel also talked about. So for the PS5, they did 25.03 billion in revenue, and according to Daniel, it says 3.22 billion in profit for the game and network services. So that's versus the 15 billion in revenue at Xbox. But I'll get into why it's a little bit strange, and I'll be honest, I don't fully understand. Like to me, 25 billion seems good. Like on paper, it looks like, oh, hey, that's better than Xbox. They did 25 billion in revenue, but then they're saying only 3.22 billion in profit. So are they? I don't really understand how those numbers are cut then. So it looks like they're doing great in the gaming division, and that would sort of make sense with what I would expect. But then I started reading some analysis and stuff later, which was a little weird. But anyway, Sony had its best year ever for game and network services like PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. So they're starting to make some headway there. They have sold 7.8 million PS5 units. 3.3 million of those units were shipped in the last quarter. The PS4 had sold 7.6 million units in the same time frame. And of course, you can't get a PS5 right now, so demand is higher than supply, just as it is with Xbox. As for game sales, this was sort of interesting to me. 338.9 million games, physical and digital, sold through March 31st. That's across PS4 and PS5. 65% of those were digital. More and more people are going digital. You look at Game Pass and how well Game Pass is doing year over year. That's versus 53% last year in digital sales. Really big win for Sony here. 17% more first party games. So that bet on just making great first party stuff is it's paying off. Now, here's something where it's not quite as good. They have 47.6 million PlayStation Plus subscribers. That part's great. What's interesting is their monthly active users are down to 109 million versus 114 million in 2020. So, in 2020 there was a big spike due to COVID hitting the world. And then already in March 2021, they're down to 109 million. This is 31 million fewer monthly active users than what Xbox had reported. So it's interesting that Xbox is reporting 10 billion less in sales, but they have 31 million more people signing on to their consoles every month. So that is one of those numbers where I was really, really surprised to see. I'm like, oh, okay, so Sony's reporting 10 billion more in profit, but Xbox has more users. And I think that means, because Sony is projecting that they're, of course, going to do less revenue because, COVID's coming to an end, hopefully. And, and people are going to, eventually, they're going to hit sort of like a saturation point with the number of people who own the hardware. So the hardware sales aren't going to be going as crazy as they were at launch, right? I mean, it could, but they're projecting that it won't. So anyway, that was really, really interesting to me. And that's just sort of my 2 cents and immediate thoughts on it. What's also interesting is the PS4 is coming to the end of its console life cycle. And they're saying that the PS4 is going to sell less than the PS2 did at 115.9 million units. So the PS4 is going to end out its life cycle and not sell as much as the PS2. But you should take that with a grain of salt because more software is going to be sold on the PS4 due to that digital access. And as we see, more and more people are buying digitally. I think people just don't want to have like things cluttering up their house anymore. So that whole game preservation argument really, really comes into play when you start looking at that. And Sony did invest a lot of money into research and development. And I have to wonder if that's because they're trying to come up with a solution for several things that they need to figure out. So when I start looking at it comparatively, it's a $10 billion difference. But when you start cutting these numbers and I start seeing what Bloomberg's saying about it, I'm like, oh, like, it's just weird that Sony doesn't seem happy with these numbers. So Sony fell short of their overall targets. They plan a $1.8 billion buyback of stock. So, I mean, that's not something that you want to do. So Sony is going to be buying their own stock back from their investors to keep the investors happy. And then Bloomberg also said revenue from the PlayStation business as well as the music segment smartphone games missed a consensus of analysts who thought the stay-at-home demand would have propelled these businesses more, says Hideki Yasuda, an analyst at Ace Research Institute from Bloomberg. And then MarketWatch also said, meanwhile, operating profit for its game business fell 28% to, this is in yen, but 33.04 billion yen. So, you look at it on paper, and this is what everybody's going to be tweeting on Twitter and everything. And I've just come to the conclusion, Twitter's just not reality. It's just, people are just trolling, and I see it all the time. And I'm just like, all right, like this just isn't real. Like people aren't thinking analytically about this stuff. It's a $10 billion profit difference, but I feel like things are going to even out much quicker than I thought, which is good for everybody, right? I'm a little concerned about hearing that Sony is missing these profit things, according to Bloomberg and MarketWatch. And honestly, like I wanted to record this video to sort of talk to you about the numbers and talk to you about like my reaction to them as I'm reading through them and basically processing this live with you right now. I might do a follow-up video if I come to like some sort of conclusion about, or maybe you guys explain it to me in the comments about what's going on here. But I mean, it's win-win for gamers everywhere, right? So Xbox did 15 billion. Daniel Ahmad also did this graph where you show just how much they care about digital. So you got to remember, Microsoft made 41 billion in revenue. So Game Pass and those digital sales, reminder, they do not care if you play on Xbox, the console. So like the console wars aren't that's not their game, and that's sort of what I've been alluding to in my videos. 80% around, I think it was 80 around sorry, I think it was around 80% of profit is coming from digital sales. And that does not need to be tied to a box in your living room. It's like these console war things are just sort of like, it's a moot point. It's a bonus for Xbox, and Microsoft as a whole. And it's great to see that Sony did 25.03 billion in revenue. I need to do a little bit more research about why everybody's saying they did bad. Because I'm reading these numbers and I'm like, you did 10 billion more than Microsoft. That's good, right? But yeah. Anyway, that's sort of my live reaction to these numbers, and these just came out, late at night, and oh god, I'm just rambling already. But yeah, so hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight as to how everybody's doing this year. Your takeaway is hopefully, all right, everybody's doing awesome, because that is actually what's happening. Sony seems to be doing great, or at least the PlayStation branch, and Xbox is just really, really kicking butt on with their acquisitions and their growth, like 232% growth year over year, 34% year over year growth, and 50% year over year growth. Like the numbers are pretty nuts. Hopefully that continues into the future. Hey, thank you for watching, first of all. And if you like these late night videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I forgot to animate on the little thing, so I'll do it. I'm just going to duplicate it a whole bunch of times, and well, maybe not too much. Maybe I'll just do like 3. All right. And thank you so much. We have some new members. I turned on memberships on YouTube. Thank you so much if you support that way. Memberships are a thing on YouTube. You just click the join button, and you can enjoy these late night conversations with me where I look at analyst revenue quotes from Bloomberg and MarketWatch and nerd out about it. I'm glad you enjoy these. I hope you're enjoying your coffee, enjoying your afternoon, or just enjoy your whole day. And I'm going to see you for the next one. Bye, everybody.